Well, good afternoon. We are continuing to make steady progress. For 7 straight days last week, we've had less than 100 daily new cases of COVID-19 across Ontario. 30 out of 34 regions are reporting less than 5 new cases a day. And after consultation with the Chief Medical Officer of Health, I'm pleased to announce Windsor-Essex will enter Stage 3 this Wednesday at 12:01 a.m. And thank you to Mayor Dilkins, McDonald, and Santos. I also want to thank the local public health unit, the farmers, the workers, and especially the people of Windsor-Essex. I'm so happy for them. I really am. Can't wait to see you on Thursday as well. Thank you for listening to the public health advice and ensuring more businesses can open and more people can go back to work. As all of Ontario now moves into Stage 3, let's continue to stay on our guard against COVID-19. Practice physical distancing, wear a mask when required, wash your hands frequently, and don't forget to download the COVID Alert app. Last week's job numbers showed we're making steady progress on the road to recovery. As we reopen more businesses and community spaces, we must all work together to remove the barriers that get in the way of people succeeding, of businesses succeeding, and communities succeeding. It starts with adapting workplaces to public health measures, protecting ourselves with masks and physical distancing, addressing inequality in our school system, and protecting our communities and cracking down on crime. It's absolutely critical that our brave men and women in uniform have the tools and the resources they need to do their job and keep us safe. Last summer, when some neighborhoods saw episodes of senseless violence, Toronto Police made an urgent request. They asked us for more resources to expand closed-circuit televisions or CCTV camera coverage to catch criminals in the act and keep guns and gangs off our streets. And we answered the call. Our government invested $3 million over 3 years to help double the number of CCTV cameras in areas experiencing surges in gun violence. This was in addition to the $25 million we're providing over 4 years to help fight gun and gang violence in Toronto and crack down on bail offenders. And earlier this year, I was pleased to join Mayor Brown and Mayor Crombie to announce $20 million to fight guns and gangs in Peel Region. And these investments are being put to good use. Police services across Ontario are using these investments effectively to disrupt gang activity and get illegal guns off the city streets. Because that's what happens when you invest in our men and women in uniform. You get results. And we wanted to do more. We wanted to make sure any police service in Ontario who needed the extra tools and resources to fight crime in their communities could have access to them. That's why I'm pleased to announce today our government is investing $6 million over 3 years for new CCTV grant program. Any police services in Ontario will be able to apply. This is an important tool in the fight against the gun and gang violence, human trafficking, and sexual violence. We will bring violent criminals to justice. We will keep our streets safe, and we will give our police everything they need to make sure every community and every business across the province can rebuild after this period of uncertainty, free of fear and full of potential. Thank you, and God bless the people of Ontario. Now I'll hand it over to Minister Jones.
Thank you, Premier. Ensuring the safety and well-being of Ontarians is one of our government's most important responsibilities. That is why we are partnering with police services across Ontario to expand the coverage of closed-circuit television systems that help protect communities from criminal threats. This investment of $6 million over 3 years will be made available through the Ontario CCTV grant, a new program designed to support municipalities and police surveillance capabilities. This is the latest part of our government's comprehensive, province-wide guns, gangs, and violence reduction strategy, which is helping to protect communities across Ontario. Our frontline police, the heroes we rely on to bring criminals to justice, tell us that CCTV technology works and is one of the best tools we have to gain a critical advantage over criminal organizations. Gang members are less likely to commit a crime if they are at a greater risk of being caught. And video footage of crimes committed will help with investigations, identify suspects, and support prosecutions to keep criminals off our streets. Today's CCTV systems have also evolved to include features such as advanced night vision capabilities and 360-degree fields of view. These are important modern-day police capabilities, and it is a priority for our government to ensure Ontario Police Services can count on these features. Ontarians and our partners in public safety called on our government to do more to combat gun, crime, and gang activity in communities across the province. We listened, and we will keep doing so. We are taking the necessary steps to stand up for law-abiding citizens and provide police services with the tools and resources they need to protect Ontarians. Last week, we announced funding for 21 projects between police and community organizations to strengthen public safety at the local level, using money and assets seized from criminals. Our government's message to gang members and violent criminals across this province is clear. We're coming for you, and the violence must end now. Thank you.
Okay, we'll go to the phone line for questions. First question, please.
Your first question comes from Katerina Georgieva with CBC Windsor. Please go ahead.
Hi, Katerina.
Hi, Premier. Hi, thanks for taking my question. With Windsor-Essex finally moving into stage 3 this week, what does this decision tell us about the situation in the agri-farm sector? What exactly has changed, in your opinion?
I think it's getting much better. We have more testing, and we have the mobile units going to the farms, and we're testing every day. And I just want to thank the farmers. I want to thank the workers and the mayors, Mayor Santos, Mayor McDonald, and especially the people of Essex. They're incredible people. I absolutely love them, and I can't wait to get back down to Windsor. I know I went to Essex last time. Now I want to see all the folks in Windsor on Thursday. So I'm really excited about going down there and see the people. They're incredible people down there. And I just want to get them back on their feet and help them any way we can.
Follow up.
My second question is, just looking ahead to the colder months, winter is not far away, and this could bring new challenges with kids back in school, limited access to outdoor spaces, forcing people to gather more indoors, which we know is riskier for transmission. So I'm just wondering, is the province making any plans for the colder months to support residents?
Well, I think the Chief Medical Officer has laid that out, and you have a good Chief Medical Officer in Windsor as well. Again, go back to the golden rule. The golden rule: keep your social distancing 2 meters apart, wear face coverings when you can, don't gather in large groups, and that's the recommendation. And so far, everyone's doing so well in Ontario. I think last week we had 7 days straight under 100. And I have the opportunity to talk to a lot of friends in the U.S., and they just can't believe it. It's like we're living on a different planet when I tell them we're under 100 cases with 14.77 million people. They're shocked, and they keep asking how, and I said it's the people. I have nothing to do with this. I always say I play the smallest part. It's the people that all pitched in, followed the protocols and guidelines from the Chief Medical Officers. So it's amazing when we all band together, we're all pulling in the same direction, how we can get things resolved.
Next question.
Thank you. Your next question comes from Robert Benzie with the Toronto Star. Please go ahead.
Hi, Robert.
Hi, Premier. This is a question for you and for the Solicitor General. I'm just wondering for your thoughts, both of your thoughts, on this Ontario Human Rights Commission report saying that black people in Toronto are more likely to be arrested, charged, shot, or killed by Toronto police than white people or other racialized groups. Just wonder your thoughts and the Solicitor General's thoughts on this disturbing research.
Well, I think it's so important that we continue working with the black community and helping them any way we can. And that's what our government's doing with Jamil Javani. He's doing a great job reaching out. I reach out to the community always. I go right into the community and talk to them and listen to their concerns. But I'm going to pass this over to the Solicitor General. Thank you.
Thank you. So as you know, the recommendation to the province was very specific about collecting race-based data. And as of January 1st, 2020, we have been doing that. We are compelling police services across Ontario to submit race-based data for any kind of intervention that has use of force included. Thank you.
Follow up.
So so it sounds like you're concerned about this and you're acting on it, but I mean, in the light of all of the protests that we've seen this summer around the world and in Toronto, this suggests that this is a problem that we have to deal with, that governments have to deal with. And do you feel you're doing enough to deal with it? Because some would say that you're not, that police are still unfairly targeting Black people.
Yeah, I'll pass that back to the soldier.
Yeah, so I would say that we're not reacting to the human rights interim report that came out this morning. We have been very active in doing things already. The activity that we do in terms of training our police officers with use of force, with using situation tables, hub tables, to try to bring all of the community agencies and partners together. You know, at the end of the day, when someone calls 911, they need to know that a police officer will show up at their door. But is there an opportunity for other community agencies to do more? Absolutely, which is exactly why our government has made a commitment and invested more in community mental health, because we understand that having up to 40% of police calls into 911 be related to mental health and addictions suggests that there are other pathways and other opportunities that we need to explore as a government, as a community. And that's why I frankly love the situation tables, the hubs, because they bring all of those partners together and they deal with the individual and try to get them the services that they need in the community that they live. Thank you.
Next question.
Your next question comes from Colin DeMello with CTV. Please go ahead.
Hi there. Good afternoon,
Hi, Colin.
Premier. A lot of school boards are now starting to ask parents and canvas parents to see whether or not they're actually going to send their kids back to school in September. I'm just wondering from you, how confident do you think parents should be that if their child goes to the school, they're not going to catch the virus?
Well, I'm confident, but to say I'm confident no one's going to catch the virus is just not realistic with 2 million people going back into the system, 160,000 teachers. But I do believe we have the best plan in the entire country, and the more articles I read, like the gentleman that's suing the BC government, they want the Ontario plan. I heard a scenario over in Saskatchewan. They want the Ontario plan. You know, Colin, we've done everything we possibly can to make sure we have the safest environment, and making sure we're adaptable, making sure we're flexible, and we continue listening. But I'll pass this over to the Minister of Education. Thank you.
Thank you, Colin. You know, I think our plan is premised on ensuring that we put every single protocol in place to de-risk the circumstance. But I think an honest acknowledgement that the effectiveness of this plan is predicated on the willingness of the population to continue to do their part. I mean, community transmission has so much to do with the ability of keeping schools open. The fact that for 7 consecutive days, as I understand yesterday, 25,000 tests, less than 100 people with positive tests, is an amazing demonstration that we can do this. We can get kids back in class safely if we all collectively never lose sight of the consequence of our actions today and their impact on learning tomorrow. So I have confidence that kids can return safely within our schools, knowing that this province is leading in virtually every measurement. In fact, I understand Quebec has just put out their health and safety protocol, which has somewhat incrementally emulated Ontario's for having masking from grade 5 up, whereas we're starting in 4, and theirs is not mandated in classrooms, whereas ours is. The comprehensive nature of our plan should build confidence, with the acknowledgement that we're putting significant numbers of young people into the system of education after being home for 6 months, that the Premier acknowledged. So we're doing everything we can to de-risk it. We're doing everything we can to follow the evidence, the science, and the emerging advice of our public health agencies to put in layers of prevention and multitude of actions. And I'm assuring you, as I think we've demonstrated from a month ago when we announced a net increase for school boards, when we announced a week ago an additional incremental investment of $309 million more. We're demonstrating to you that we're going to be there for our boards, for our kids, for our educators, and we're going to do whatever it takes to keep them safe. And I think that's really the important message. We have the will and the determination to put the protocols, put the investments in place, and the staffing and the cleaning and the testing, which is unique for this province, in place to ensure our kids could return this September safely.
Follow up.
Thank you. Premier, you've said in the past that you're taking the advice of some of the best medical minds in the country, and they no doubt are some of the best medical minds in the country. But I'm wondering where parents' voices factor in on all of this, because there are parents who are saying very loudly and very clearly that they want smaller class sizes. Your government has set aside $2 billion in the reserve earlier this year for pandemic-related expenditures that are, unforeseen. Are you planning to spend any of that reserve to kind of satisfy parents who have their concerns to maybe lower class sizes?
Well, we are in high populations, urban areas. We have $30 million across the province, but especially in areas that we've seen uptick in COVID cases, and we have that $30 million additional dollars. And something, Colin, everyone wants smaller classrooms, including myself. I fully understand, but there's always the requirement. I'm not going to be putting kids in strip malls or industrial buildings, that's for sure. And then the other issue are the teachers. But again, I'll pass this back to the minister. Thank you.
The province, I think, as I noted, has continuously been increasing our investments in our share to make sure that the school return in September is safe. That is our obligation. And I think the fact that we lead, Colin, when you compare Ontario, not to a jurisdiction across the pond, in this country, there is no province by far that is spending more per capita, more per pupil than Ontario. In fact, we have the most comprehensive masking policy, the most aggressive testing regime for asymptomatic students in secondary. We have more custodians being hired, more investment for hand sanitation. We are cohorting students. We are staggering class times and end times, bus and recesses, more funding to clean our buses. In every area, we have stepped it up. We all have to play a part here. Our educators, our school boards, and of course, government working together, collaborating, and ultimately unifying our efforts. To make sure that September is safe. And so I think we have demonstrated we have spent and invested more in this country than any province and more in our province's history. But I acknowledge, and I think we all do as members of government, that as this challenge emerges, as the research changes and is being, and is being updated, the government will respond with a corresponding investment to make sure the kids are safe. And in the context of the classroom size, I'll just say in those higher risk communities, like, for example, Toronto or Durham or York or Peel, where the transmission risk is higher in those communities, and where the emerging evidence seems to conclude that older students have a higher risk of transmission, it is on that basis that we decided, we in fact enforced a mandate that those high school classes will be capped at 15 and ultimately cohorted and using an adapted model as noted. There's $30 million set aside to hire more educators, more aides. We're the only province, as I understand, to have done that. And keep in mind, in those early years, we by far have the smallest classroom size. But for those classrooms where distancing cannot be achieved at 1 meter, we know that there's funding set aside to allow more educators, more EAs and ECs to be hired. And obviously, we're going to continue to be there for our boards. If there's a demand for more resources, I think we've demonstrated a real willingness to be collaborative and solution-oriented, and we're just going to be there for our kids. Nothing will impede our commitment when it comes to keeping kids safe. That from financing to staffing, to health protocols, we're going to continue to do that every day. And we work throughout this entire weekend to look for additional efforts we can take as a province in collaboration with our school boards to further increase the safety for our kids in September.
Next question.
Your next question comes from Brian Lilly with the Toronto Sun. Please go ahead.
Hi, Brian.
Hi, Premier. You've said many times since the beginning of the pandemic you don't want Ontario to be in the position it was with scrambling to get PPE. Yeah. You've said that you want to make Ontario the place that PPE is made for the whole country. So I'm wondering about your reaction to a story from out of Ottawa that the federal government awarded a Quebec company $382 million to make masks, even though they had no factory in Canada, and 0 masks have been received to date, even though they were supposed to begin shipping more than a month ago. Does it seem like some type of favoritism to you that they went to a sole source contract to a Quebec company when you've got all these Ontario companies retooling?
Well, first of all, in Ontario, we don't believe in sole sourcing anything, not even to mention the $381 million. And if they need masks over there from great Ontario manufacturers, we have dozens of them now here in Ontario, making the surgical masks and making the N95s. And that's one of our requirements, and we're going out for bid that we're in the process of doing. One of the requirements is that they manufacture them here in Ontario. And for any reason, if they need to build a facility, we're allowing that. You know, let's get the facility built. And as long as you're creating jobs right here in Ontario that will never have to rely on a foreign country or a foreign government. Let's just, for instance, Brian, say, you know, God forbid the second wave comes, and the same run on these masks all over the world, and Quebec can't get these masks because they aren't manufactured in Quebec. There's a problem. I just want to say I have a great deal of respect for Francois Legault. I consider him a friend, one of my closest allies, and I know he's going to straighten it out. And I just believe in manufacturing here in Ontario. So Francois, you listening? If you need some masks, by all means, we'll ship some over because we have lots of masks here.
Follow-up?
Is it problematic, though, that you know, the federal government has long favored Quebec, whether it's liberal or conservative, and you're trying to build up Ontario, and they go with a sole source contract with a company that has no factory in Canada, that they just closed down their factory in Canada last year, in fact, and it's a multi-year contract. Does that put Ontario companies at a disadvantage to try and build up capacity when they can't even bid?
Yeah, no, I know exactly what you're saying there, Brian, but we're going to focus here in Ontario, continue manufacturing great protective masks, surgical masks, and the N95 masks. And I understand if a company has to take 6 months to build a facility here in Ontario, God bless you. Build the facility, hire more people, and start creating masks here. But right now, since we've been going on a little tour and seeing these companies, they're great companies. They've brought forward ingenuity and their expertise to put together the mass manufacturing machine that we have. And it's a mass manufacturing machine. I say a machine as a group of manufacturers. So we're on the right track. And again, I'm willing to help out the feds or the province of Quebec anytime they need help. All Francois has to do, or I should say Premier Legault has to do, is give me a call, and I'm there to support him any way he can. He's a really good man. He's a good premier, and he's a good friend.
Last question.
Your final question comes from Lucas Meyer with News Talk 1010. Please go ahead.
Hi, Lucas.
Good afternoon. Premier, I know there's been some questions on class sizes, but I do want to ask about social bubbles. When school begins and children will be part of these new cohorts, can you confirm that we're going to be hearing about social bubble changes before school starts, and if so, what those changes could look like?
Lucas, right now I haven't heard anything from the health table. I know the cohorts are down to 15, but maybe I'll pass to the minister. Maybe he has some information I don't have.
Yeah, thanks, Lucas. Dr. Yaffe did answer that question at the announcement last Thursday when we announced the reopening plan, the safe reopening plan. And as I recall, Dr. Yaffe did note that there will be further information being provided to the public on the, the element of reopening schools, the cohort program, and how that interfaces with the bubbles. So I think Dr. Yaffe and Dr. Williams will be best positioned to speak about that evolution and how these layers can complement each other, not necessarily compete with each other, to ensure the integrity of contact tracing, which is very strong in this province, and being strengthened with the app, where we've seen over 1 million Canadians participate, and we're encouraging more people to do that, especially as we get into September. In addition, I'm encouraging parents out there, as was supported by many leading experts, pediatric doctors, is to get your child vaccinated ahead of September with any outstanding vaccines as we look to influenza and the challenges in the fall. Any proactive measure we can take as a society and in your capacity as a parent would be prudent to ensure your child is safe and their peers and their staff as well.
Follow-up?
Thank you. And on another matter, for the Premier, and I think for Minister Jones, Premier, we had Michelle Jones on our air last week, the mother of Darian Haley Henderson-Bellin, who was killed in Brampton, obviously expressing her heartbreak and anger that the accused in this matter was out on the street. And Premier, you talked about this yourself, Last week, the frustration at the system, the mayor was angry, the police chief was angry. So my question is, recognizing that these are federal matters, obviously, and I'm certainly no lawyer, but if this is such a problem, is there something the province can do or explore to create greater accountability around judges and these types of decisions around bail conditions, et cetera? Some sort of new provincial, review system, because if this is so horrible, are you just going to keep pushing the feds to be tougher on bail and conditions? And if not, is there some sort of provincial mechanism that you could explore?
Well, I'll pass it in a second over to the Minister, the Solicitor General. I've been ranting about this from the day I think I got in the office. And first of all, I want to give my prayers and thoughts and my condolences to the family. It's heart-wrenching. Can't even imagine it. I have 4 girls. Couldn't even imagine it. And I hear the frustration from the police chiefs and the frontline police officers. It's frustrating when they put their lives on the line, they arrest someone, all of a sudden in a couple of days they're out there doing the same nonsense, and it's unacceptable. We need to toughen up bail conditions, toughen up sentences. I've always said we have a weak system when people are committing heinous crimes, and I'm not talking petty crimes, I'm talking terrible, violent crimes. They need to be thrown in jail. The key needs to be thrown away. And I've mentioned this numerous times to the federal government. And I'm going to keep hammering away at them. But I'm going to let the expert, the Solicitor General, talk about any means that we might have, because believe me, I'd throw these guys away until the cows come home and get them off the streets and start protecting our families and our children that are outside. It's just unacceptable. People are running around shooting up our streets. And I won't tolerate it for a second. So I'll pass it over to the Solicitor General. Thank you.
Look, Michelle Jones did the right thing. She came forward. The police did their job. They prosecuted. They charged. What fell down was a judiciary system that doesn't clearly understand how critically important it is when dealing with domestic violence situations and other very strong, heinous criminal activity. Anecdotally, my understanding is the federal C-75 is not helping. In fact, it is quite an impediment when I speak to police chiefs and officers. I believe that we all have to do a better job federally. Yes, I think they do have to step up and look very carefully at what the repercussions of C-75 have been in our communities, because I'm sure that I am not the only person in Ontario that doesn't want to hear another Michelle Jones story. Domestic violence and the repercussions that tear apart our communities and our families have to end, and in this situation, it was the judiciary, respectfully, that didn't listen to the experts, didn't listen to the police and the Crowns, and went against those recommendations, and unfortunately, Michelle's family is now dealing with that very tragic situation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.